Hey, it's Shabes, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week from the 14th of March to the 21st of March. Once again, we start with a video that I did not finish, but I want to include in Digest in some way because I think it's significant and interesting. Dub Talk. I don't know if I've mentioned their channel like in proper yet, but I have been following it. They're one of the few, dub-centric YouTube channels, right? And they had their W Awards. Like, they've been doing this for 6 years now. It's crazy. I only watched a little ways in with their intro and stuff, which was a cute little like skit at the beginning, a live action skit, and that's nice for if this presentation is just podcast form, very casual and talking over each other and side tangents and things like that. It's not the most like tight production or anything like that. And it's over like basically a PowerPoint presentation, and they're going slide by slide and giving the nominations and things like that. But it's like a group of them. I think there's like 3 or 4 of them. And I like the skit at the beginning, kind of giving you an idea of what their faces are and what they look like. And they seem to be a little more on the older side. They've been in fandom for what seems like kind of a while. Not like you're old, not like that, but and also just like their humor and things seem very familiar to me, I guess. Yeah, I've talked about it before, that like con humor, I guess. I don't know. But I didn't end up like watching the whole presentation. It is pretty long, and I ended up watching the rest of the digest videos, and then I just didn't want this to be done at like 6 p.m. or whatever. And so but it's really interesting, and I'm very happy that they the real reason I knew about it was my group, like my boss with like in discotheque and all them, they shared this in like our groups, to be like, hey, Memory's got won a couple awards of like, some person gave it dub of the year. They had a couple people that they each have each judge, the participants had like 2 dubs of the year, and I watched like a fair deal of that section. And then just kind of looking through some of the nominees and things like that. And it was pretty well thought out and thorough. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's not like the most posh production. It's not like kind of a under the scope type of deal. But that's okay. I think it was still very interesting and cool. I don't know, positive attribute. But yeah, I didn't watch all of it, so I wanted to put it at the beginning there. All right. And now for some videos that I thought were not good. They were close. It's close to be like a decent with an asterisk type of thing, but the vast majority of it, and I could see where the good parts, there could be not goods that have good parts to them, right? Anyway, yeah, this first one, I was not too happy with this Bobdunga video, The Western World of Sailor Moon. It's a documentary. Very much like a documentary, and it has this nice little kind of AMV intro. Although I was a little weirded at the choice of that one, because like it's an AMV, but it's like in they have like the set with the TV inside of it, and they have the footage inside, and so the AMV is playing inside the TV, but then they also like cut to different shots and zoom ups of the TV. And I'm like, you're kind of doing 2 different things. And I guess that's interesting, but it doesn't immerse me in the same way. I don't get as properly hyped as I think a traditional intro AMV might be. That was just not my 2 cents on that. I thought that was just an odd choice. And not that was the reason that this was not good, of course. I think the real problem is how effing long this thing is without really giving that much information that's new or additive. It was so frustrating, because like I like the concept that they're doing kind of a lost media type of thing about the that lost live action cartoon hybrid that they were going to try to make instead of just localizing Sailor Moon and dubbing it, which is what they ended up doing. So it was like a live action cartoon thing, and the only thing that I remember hearing about this is like that cam rip of somebody like showing off a 2-minute music video pilot, like sort of thing. But apparently there's a 17-minute pilot as well, and nobody's really gone the extra mile to actually interview the people who were involved with it, besides Bobdunga here. Raven, I believe, is was the first or last name? I'm sorry, I think it's Raven. She was actually willing to go. They actually really go digging and go kind of cold call email people and things like that. And she describes an experience with one of the creatives behind it. I forget what role he had. I think he was just one of the animators or something like that. And he did answer a few questions, but she does the thing that I think take from a lot of other YouTubers these days, where the narrative of them making this video ends up being the interesting thing more than the information itself. So she kind of like narrates and dramatizes almost this narrative of her emailing this person back and forth and them not responding to her for like 17 days and then 24 days, and and I found that this particular approach in this instance, and the tone that this guy was setting was seeming to be really helpful, but he just kept getting distracted or busy or anything like that. I didn't like the drama. I didn't personally like the choice of that in this instance. It felt very uncomfortable, because clearly, like, I think the guy was interested, but he just didn't get back to you, and that happens in show business or in journalism, right? I imagine with journalism that's a major challenge when like you want to get something and it doesn't come to you in the way you hope it would, right? YouTube videos in general make that, and there is a case to be made in some some places where like the journey is what the audience is interested in, and that is a unique thing that YouTube does. Besides traditional media, like not a lot of, I don't think traditional media goes that far and makes the narrative out of like, so I emailed this person, it goes like this, and even like filming herself in live action and getting stock footage. There's a lot of stock footage in this video, like a lot. Like a kind of an uncomfortable amount sometimes. And then a lot of the Sailor Moon stuff, I could tell there was a lot of like repeated footage. Like they were using the same shot of the store clerk in episode 1 or whatever turning into the hag, and from the OP and stuff, and it's like that shows like 4 or 5 times in this hour and 30 minutes. And I get it's a long video, but that was just a little annoying to me personally. And there was just how much stock footage there was. I get like it's hard to make visuals for this sort of thing, and I do think that they make it up for it in the end. I think the end is what almost kind of makes this a decent with an asterisk for me. Like that's really worth it, but then it kind of sours it at the end, but I'll get there. The opening chunk, the intro, interesting. I think it kind of gave me the wrong impression at first, because I'm going into this video, right, and I see all this stuff, right, in the thumbnail and everything. And the intro is her talking about this time when she's trying to unlock this memory that she had, and she remembers this doll and has like this certain type of hairstyle. And me as a viewer, I'm thinking like, are you talking about Sailor Moon in this instance? Are you trying to be like digging up this thing? Oh, and it was Sailor Moon. And I'm like, this is such a weird approach for such a popular series. You know what I mean? That was what I was getting at from that intro. And then it's a different doll, it's a whole different thing, but her reason for using that as a hook or a dramatic device for the start of the documentary is this idea of like uncovering things. And at least that's what it feels. That I think that was the approach, but I just got caught off of like, are you trying to make like, but it's not Sailor Moon, because like the way you describe it is like she has like biker shorts underneath the skirt and the hair's a certain way or whatever. And she's like, I was obsessed with magical girls. I'm like, okay, so then it's not Sailor Moon, it's something else. But they just kind of got the video off on a wrong foot, and that's really tough. The first impression is really important with a video, especially you should know with the YouTube algorithm and stuff. You can see a viewer's retention rate. It always dips really down, no matter how good you end up making it. It ends up being really difficult. But that was weird. And then this chunk of course they're gonna do let's talk about Sailor Moon and how popular it is and how important it is before we get to the topic you're here for. And yeah, I was really disappointed by that. I actually did tweet this out, that like I was so annoyed that the Sailor Moon is an anime by Toei Animation with a manga by Takeuchi, her freaking last Naoko Takeuchi. Why don't you bring up Junichi Sato? I've already the tweet, but like he's so important to the reason the anime is so beloved. And this isn't the point of the video. The point is the Americanization. I'm fine that you don't dwell on this, but like people don't really like Crystal all that much, right? I'm getting the impression that like fans weren't really so hot on Crystal. Do you know why that is? It's because Junichi Sato's contributions were not present. It's just trying to be a strict manga faithful thing. But it seems to me, I guess as an outside version, I haven't even seen Sailor Moon yet, but I have seen Goldfish Warning, which is the work he did right before Sailor Moon, which has the same kind of comedy, again from what I can observe, the same kind of comedy and style, both in the animation and the designs and in the backgrounds, for Sailor that led to Sailor Moon's success. The original anime and that original run is what people love. And then there's all the merchandise and all this other stuff, and sure, it becomes a huge franchise. But like it starts from there, and that was just really frustrating to me. And her talking about all that, that was really frustrating. And then bringing it into the United States and the context of that, I did appreciate a little bit with the talking about Moonies, like that particular fan community, and how the first 2 seasons were aired and then they didn't really go for a third one. Even but the way she words it, it's like it stopped production. And I'm like, you mean the dub? I guess the dub, but like you make it sound like the show stopped production when like it was already airing its 5th season by the time the first season came over. Anyway, like it was just the wording in that and certain things. It just didn't make me feel like I was in the right hands. Like I really know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I kind of get off guard on that way. There's people that a lot of us who have looked into this stuff so long. You can get that sense where you're like, wait, that's so easy. Like, why didn't you pick up on that or whatever? And it, even all the additive and research stuff you're going to do later, and the clear amount of effort and passion you're putting into this project, it does kind of put us in an uneasy mindset and on our guard. I've talked about this before with like a viewer being on their guard, I guess, where it's like, oh, you don't really know what you're talking about, or like, I'm not really in good hands here. I'm not going to be able to properly enjoy this video in the same way. So that was difficult. But I think the perspective of like the online community and some of those fan sites and things like that was neat. But again, I think it's the fan. There's this one awkward cut you did with like we were like this small community who like were anonymous and then like the stock footage is like some people at a party like dancing. I'm like, what? I don't know. That was just kind of strange to me. Whatever. But then like, yeah, the chunk of the real bulk of this would be the diving into the thing. And again, I didn't like the approach of like dramatizing the email thing. I would have just rather get the information that you attained from this, and then you have to go through all of this stuff and some other detours and things like that. But like, I really wish that, realizing that this is such an active community, right? Like there's probably a lot of the stuff that they already know about, but the thing that your video adds that makes it interesting is the stuff that you interviewed these people and you got some answers from them. I think that what little you got from that one guy who kind of ghosted you was still valuable, and I'm happy you included it, but I just wasn't happy with the implementation of it. You know what I mean? Because that made it frustrating, and it kind of smothered what he had to say. I think what he had to say was interesting, of his perspective of like, I didn't think anime would be able to be that popular, but I was interested in it. There was this particular appeal to it because he's an animator. And he's like, it doesn't move all that much, but it moves in very particular places, like just their hair. And that's really appealing and interesting. And also very cost effective. You know what I mean? Like there's an appreciation there, and that was really cool. But it got kind of taken over with like, he won't answer all my diehard questions. Do you have the, and that's just is what it is. But thankfully, she does find another person to interview. And this is a pencil tester and animation runner. Like she was handling a lot of the cells and things like that. And she had like this photo of some of the staff people, and that was like really additive because they confirmed the inclusion of this particular actress who was involved, or voice actress, I think, that was kind of rumored but not confirmed, and now it's kind of a hard confirmation. And you got more details on the staff, like who was kind of executive producer and things like that. And they had a lot of good stories. They had this really incredible story of like there's just starting in animation, and Chuck Jones, like she goes over and like Chuck Jones is at her working desk, like just doing like filming for something else, and she goes over because it's her, and he's like, oh, do you need something from your desk? And she's like, actually, could you sign my desk? And he's like, oh yeah, do you want a drawing? And he draws something for, and it's like, that's so cool, and the way Raven depicts this is through these really nice kind of animatics with like illustrating the different people and things like that. And that was a really great way to illustrate that, because it's not just telling a story sort of thing. I love that. Love that. And that's the best part of the video. But it's the very end. It's like all the way at the end of this hour-and-a-half video, right? That's really tough. Because I would hate people to miss out on that. I think that's really interesting. And her insight and like in the interview that's really valuable and new. And then the thing that what kind of turns me off from like making this a decent with an asterisk, just because that part is so good. And also just, of course, your general effort, and you seem to be really good at video making. It's just I think some of the creative choices you made in the artistic approach here didn't quite work for me. But like the end of it, you tease a part 2 because you have a particular deadline for this documentary, and the deadline is because I was like, why do you have? It's a YouTube video. You can put it out whenever you want. And I get it. Maybe it's long time between uploads. It was like a couple months between her last upload and this one, because her last thing was also a very giant documentary project. Yeah, like 7 months ago, since this big Mean Girls DS game, and then like girl games of Lost Media stuff, which is interesting, and that's great. And then this is the next project basically, and then it turns into a part 2 because you have this like mystery live action producer or person that's kind of higher up and involved, and you do manage to contact him kind of out of surprise, and he's like, oh, I'm still actually pretty close with one of the other guys who was an executive producer of this pilot and this idea. Why don't we talk? Like, we actually like have like a voice. You get the two of us together and you interview us. And then, like, that's huge. You're going to get all the answers, I think. At least the closest you're going to get. That's so major and, like, valuable. And I'm so looking forward to that. Why is it not why is that not this? It's like the Western, why is that not here? Right? And it's because you have a sponsor at the beginning of the video. I was like, okay, you probably have to get with the sponsor and you got to get the video out. And there's a time and you've already pushed it back a couple times. I get it. That's tough. And I also want to commend some of the artistic stuff you do here with like redrawing some of the frames for your title cards, who are kind of neat. And then you do like a little pilot test of, like, not your own pilot, but like you kind of recreate something, and you do a little bit of animation yourself, which is like, that's really neat. And like, it's a really big chunk, and I'm like, why is there 20 minutes left? And and it ends up being that really valuable pencil tester. I forget their name. I'm sorry. Lynn, I think, is her first name. That interview was fantastic, but like, at the end of all that. So, I mean, it was kind of frustrating to watch. And then the tease at the end, it's like, I got a YouTube game, all right. That was frustrating, but I am looking forward to that. I'm not going to, I'm subscribed, and looking forward to seeing the other half of that. And where else this goes. I think it'll be really valuable and interesting, because that's history. It's really cool. It might be history that everyone is interested in, right? Because it's not like, directly, it's more of the Western localization aspect. But I think it's interesting, and I think it's really cool. But it just didn't, this particular video was just really frustrating and kind of long, and didn't have to be that long. And it was difficult. Yeah, and the other one I actually could give a not good to. Not like out of malice or anything. I don't have a hate boner against this guy. Just saying. I did want to kind of, I don't think that, you know what, this, usually when I have a not good, I'm not going to like talk about it, because it's like, yeah, there's nothing to say here. I do want to say something with Chibi Reviews, because I think this is something interesting he's bringing up. We are in a golden age of anime, and here's why. And it doesn't warrant 7 minutes, because he's pretty much listing all of the anime that are coming, all the kind of popular anime that are coming out this year in 2022. The vast majority of them are are sequels. It's like, hey, we're getting this season 2, we're getting this season 3, we're in this season 6. This happens every year, my guy. Where have you been? I know you've been here. Like, this has happened before. This is not new. This is not any particular special. I do think the Chainsaw Man and Bleach thing in fall is going to be insane. Then again, we don't know how good Chainsaw Man's going to look. We don't know how Thousand Year Blood War is going to go on with Bleach, right? I don't even know if we have PVs for most of the stuff that you mentioned. You mentioned 5 out of like 20 something titles that were original, and the rest of them, whatever. And the thing is, it's like, when you want to say we're in a golden age, you want to be talking about the present, I imagine, because we're like, wow, this anime is great, and not like, oh shit, this stuff's coming. We don't know the future. I was just reflecting on this, how the director of Jujutsu Kaisen is moving on from Mappa to form his own studio. So he's not going to be, I imagine, unless Mappa is like, here, the new studio, like the people who handle JJK, they're like, oh, we're going to give it to this new studio with the same director. No, they're probably going to keep it with Mappa, and it's going to be a different director, right? Or maybe he'll stay maybe he'll keep doing it. I don't know. But then, if it's a different director, is it going to look the same as season 1? Because of really how good that first season isn't simply Mappa, it's that director. Very prolific, not prolific. Prolific's not the right word for it, but like he's already made such a huge name for himself with the few projects he's been attached to. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. I don't want to butcher it. It's a Korean name though. It's interesting, right? That's awesome. That it's not just like Japanese, this. Yeah, but that's really cool. But it's also great that he's starting his own studio. That's super exciting, and maybe that means original projects. And original projects are always much more exciting these days, I think. But it's hard because it's such a saturated market. I don't know. I mean, I don't have too much to say about Chibi's video itself, because it really is just the very beginning of it. He just lists all of the season 3, season 6, and then Overlord in particular. And he does do a fair deal of talking what Overlord prompted him to make this video is because the last season came out in 2018. It is pretty crazy how far away that last season was. And then like it wasn't really well liked, the CG or whatever. And I guess there's a new trailer, and he didn't show any of it because he doesn't want to get in trouble or whatever, I guess. But like he's like, oh, it looks much better, and it's like, oh my gosh. And that, you know what, I hesitate to give this a not good only because it's nice that he can just turn on a camera and do this sort of thing, and he doesn't have to repeat himself all the he doesn't have to, like he's able to, right? And here I am like stuttering, and I'm sometimes repeating myself too, but it's also like one take, and I don't know. I think Chibi, like, I do appreciate that he's able to kind of like make these kind of topic videos and things like that. And then, that's part of the reason why he's been able to be so successful is his consistent output and really affable, charming kind of on-screen personality, I think. But this was just like, I didn't get as much ascertain enough value from this personally, besides like, 22 to 20. But then my point basically is it's like, we don't really know how well these are going to go. Just because, the new season of Seven Deadly Sins, and then it comes out, right? Or it's One Punch Man season 2, and then it comes out. You know what I mean? I don't think you mentioned Made in Abyss season 3. I think that's supposed to come out too, right? I don't even think you mentioned it. But like, there's all this sort of stuff happening, but then things can get delayed. I mean, you don't know. You don't know until it comes out. And so like, I would have rathered him to be like, if he's going to make this argument of we're living in a golden age of anime, you want to talk about what's happening right now. Like, the JJK Zero movie hitting number 2 at the US box office under the Batman. That's crazy. That's really cool. That's exciting. You think about Ranking of Kings right now, like that's such a new ongoing series, manga and stuff like that with Wit adapting it. That's really exciting and seems to be. Some people didn't apparently like the second half. Interesting how that works, huh? Oh, interesting. No. And other things like that, like other original projects. I'm not too up with the seasonals as I used to be. But it is what it is. That's just all I was thinking about. I am looking forward to those things. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely checking out Chainsaw Man and Thousand Year Blood War when they come out. We'll probably be following those weekly. And it's good to be excited about them. But like, I don't know, the particular framing of this was a little weird. Okay, and now for some videos I thought were decent. They're pretty good. And this first one, it's from PBS Voices. And, PBS got their own kind of video essay stuff for a little while. How did anime become so popular in the USA? I showed this to my boss, and he's like, oh, I'm enraged. No, but it's only because this does get the vibe of, like, this could definitely have been made in 2003. Being like, whoa, what's this anime stuff? And, like, I used to get bullied in this for school, and now look how many people are at Anime NYC. Wow. Then like, the only thing that was new to this was like, oh, streaming is being so big and everything. I'm like, cool. But like the rest of it just seemed like, I guess. But at the same time, I like the personal anecdotes. I like this is my first time at a con. I decided to go in as a cosplay. I even got these eye contacts, and I didn't realize I had to go on the subway to go to the con, and I may have looked weird or something. Like, I like that personal perspective, as trite as it might be. And then good to see the Beyond the Bot people kind of contributing to this and talking with him in places and giving different perspectives and things like that. I liked that. It is unfortunate with Beyond the Bot that they seem to have kind of put their channel on indefinite hiatus. So that, they haven't like retired or quit or anything, but the Patreon's down and other things like that. The Discord's still up. I think the Twitter was also going to shut down or something like that, but that's too bad. So, they're kind of calling it quits for the most part, it seems. But YouTube's YouTube. People can come back after years. You know what I mean? Don't feel like it's partly closed forever. But if you want to move on to the next thing, that's awesome. But it was good to see them here in that particular instance. And they also talk a little too much. Like I was kind of surprised at how much they talk about the word otaku and like how it's treated, and they even go into the otaku killer and things like that. Like, oh, okay. But at least I got somebody to interview about that, like a person of Japanese studies or something like that. That was neat. I like that they're like, would you consider yourself an otaku? After they give all this context of like the otaku killer, and she's like, yeah, I would. Yeah, because that's cool. I thought that was a neat perspective. They had this one oddity. I usually sometimes to kind of nitpick this thing. Friggin', they're like, yeah, the advent of Gundam, Macross, and Dragon Ball blew up. They crazy about otakus. And then like the next footage is like people holding up lum signs. It's like, why didn't you say Urusei Yatsura instead of Macross? Like Macross didn't really. I mean, Macross it was something. It was certainly kind of it wasn't a flop, right? But it's not Urusei Yatsura. You know what I mean? And it would also have kind of had that nice, Dragon Ball and Gundam have kind of two different big markets, and they're pretty popular stuff. But Macross is also a mecha. You know what I mean? But I think Urusei Yatsura would have been a better example. And then like the way they show it, just the Dragon Ball footage, and then they say Macross, and it's Macross, and they say, by the way, this is like, oh, it explodes in the 80s. So they show Dragon Ball, and then they show Macross, but it's Macross 7 from the 90s. It's like, oh, come on. Not that one, Again, it's a little, actually, but whatever. And then Gundam, but they show Gundam 79. I know I'm splitting hairs at that point. It's pretty much 1980 at that point, but could have put Zeta Gundam, because I know that's probably what you're talking about, because it's the original Gundam, and it didn't really do all that successfully. It did do decent with like kind of a unique crowd, and the movies did well enough, of course, that they eventually made that sequel, Zeta Gundam. And then Zeta Gundam is really what you're talking about, where Gundam is exploding, is making so big. Making so big. I good with words, So it could have been like Zeta Gundam specifically. Anyway, it's neither here nor there, really. But I was happy and appreciative that they made this kind of video and talked about the acceptance of anime in the West a little bit. But it's not the good shit. I'm not gonna say it's not the stuff that I think will be really interesting, at least to me. Maybe I'm just too much of a nerd with the things that we're hopefully working on. I don't want to tease too much. We'll see. What's so funny? I just randomly found it in my. I found like one of the uploads for this, and I wanted to shout it out because it's a kind of a finisher. It was literally uploaded today or yesterday. Bink Bonk, they just released this video. I shortened Dragon Ball GT's 64th episode down to about a minute, and it's a playlist of all 64 episodes. They said this is like they just finished this big series, and they only started a couple months ago. Fair, it's not doesn't seem too hard. But I like the concept, honestly. It's kind of funny. A little you could consider it maybe mean-spirited, where you're like, oh, it's just all the fiddler, something like that. But I do appreciate that it's all 64 episodes, and in terms of the selection in which they are actually choosing here, it's not just the plot relevant things, and like the key dialogue or anything like that, but it is also kind of notable animation moments. Like, oh, that's a really cool moment where like, oh, this big animation thing happens or something. It's not just plot. You know what I mean? Which I appreciate. There's also a little bit of humor in terms of the editing. I think there was one I only sampled a couple of them, and there was one where like Android 17 becomes Super Android 17, and like the way he does like the like and then like the actual editing is very comedic actually. So I really appreciate it. That was really fun. So I like the kind of creative project like this, and it's congratulations on doing an entire 64 episode TV series like this. It's pretty neat and kind of a creative thing I've never seen, but because it's one thing to be like JoJo Part 3 in X minutes with like Team 4-Star and things like that, but this is like kind of more functional in a way, almost, where it's not even really, you can inject your own comedy in a way through the edit kind of subliminally. But it actually kind of like uses just the episode itself. I kind of like that. And it doesn't feel mean-spirited in that way. And there's something about it where like the concept might be mean-spirited, like, oh, filler, whatever. And there is moments where like, I did watch the first and second installment of this series, and it does feel like I would actually kind of enjoy GT for those moments of just them sitting at a table drinking coffee or something, or just kind of being normal, I guess. As normal as you can get in Dragon Ball, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I did enjoy the idea, and it's fun. Congratulations on making the whole thing. So, if you're interested in GT but don't want to actually rewatch all of it, this could be kind of interesting. I did check out whimsydearest's video on Dead Demons, Dead. I said 5. Damn it. Dead Destruction. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Okay. I've always wanted to get that right, and of course I botched it so badly. Oh well. And the Soft Apocalypse. Yeah, so I mean, I was interested specifically because I know that this manga has finished recently, which was cool. Like he's been releasing this kind of as I don't even know what magazine it was. It was monthly or weekly, I'm not sure. Probably monthly, I imagine. But yeah, and this was really nice. And it says something about like this particular subject matter or whatever that kind of matches Whimsy's like delivery and then aesthetic in the video, with like how kind of pastel-y and spacey the backgrounds are, and her really soft and kind of like nice delivery. It's nice. I don't know. But like it kind of really works with like the tone of this manga, I think, where it's not sinister. I guess there's that overwhelming like kind of thing at the top. But I did not know, because I have not really read any of Inio Asano's stuff, but I know about Poon Poon and how like devastating and kind of like heart-wrenching and insane that particular series is. So I kind of got that, and it was also with how crazy the title is, right? You get that kind of vibe of like, oh, there's some weird shit, but it does. I like the description of it being very slice of lifey and the things that Whimsy's focusing on describing without spoiling anything really dramatic. But you do get a sense that things are going to go a particular way. Yeah, I just really like the comfort of this kind of video and the aesthetics and handling it with this kind of attention. Yeah, I just really enjoy her videos. They're not always something that like seem warranted, like, oh, I need to push this on Digest or something. But I don't regret watching a video or don't feel bored by them, really. But this particular one I thought it was interesting because it's a fairly recent manga that just finished wrapping up. It's timely to talk about. And also I think it really synced well with her typical delivery, I think, which is really cool. Yeah, I enjoyed the video. It was a nice time. And then this is Bomb Squad's Productions clip from their, like a highlight of sorts from their podcast, about Macros Do You Remember Love, and they're talking with this guy Ethan, I think, the many dubs of Macros Do You Remember Love, and there's a Swedish dub where they actually perform the songs, and then there's a fan dub that Christina V was in, playing Minmay. That's interesting. The one they talk mostly about is the really old Toho dub. I think it's I don't remember which version it's on, but they mainly talk about that one and how, and they give a lot of examples, which I really appreciated. I really like how this is edited, actually. I always like the idea of having just a regular podcast and then editing it like a video of sorts. I think, Steven had that similar aesthetic with not only the Cagliostro video with me, but also the Sonic video, I think. I really like that idea. And that has that aesthetic, really. Love all the examples they give, as well as just like, I think it's Ethan, his like unironic enjoyment of this dub is like, it's really fun. And then just something that I want to put on to enjoy. And it's a good time. And there is that typical at the beginning of like skewering it and like inaccuracies and like corniness and shit like that, like heinous. But I do like how it turns around, and it's actually like really fun, and kind of having a good time with the dub, which I prefer that spirit, if you know me. I really liked how it was edited. It was very fast. I didn't know that this movie had that many facets to its audio tracks. I think you should check it out. It was really fun. Alrighty then, and then what I thought were the best videos of the week. The ones where I thought were the best videos of the week. as it I don't need to repeat it, because I mean, geez, I've been doing this for over 2 years. Do you feel old? And this first one is from KaiserBeamz, the big 100 episode special Project Echo historical anime retrospective. And I think I've talked about Kaiser's videos before, where I really love his Looney Tunes series. I really like how historical it is, and his research and depiction of events is so vivid and like really valuable and interesting, and constantly engaging. It's fantastic stuff. That's like his best material, in my opinion. And then when he talks about anime, he's still really close to unparalleled in terms of the research and the amount of detail he's putting in the production side of things. That's all great. And so that first chunk where he's talking about Cream Lemon and Urusei Yatsura and the production of this sort of thing, and really giving credit to the directors and animation directors and things like that, phenomenal stuff. And like, he just doesn't know how to compliment the damn movie. Like, the way he starts is like, after he gives the synopsis of it, it's like, it sure is a movie. No, dude. Like, I don't know. That's not a good. That's, to me, like, that's something I say for Arjuna. That's, if you were a patron of mine, we did that group watch. It's like, it sure was an anime, one of the animes ever made. It's not necessarily a glowing praise, and that didn't really set it on a good foot for me, right? I would rather you like the movie, and it has its problems with panty shots. I'm like, come on, dude. So I mean, like, the subjective analysis, I never really take that much value out of. I don't know what it is. It's I don't know if it's your taste or the way you phrase things. I don't know what it is, but every time you give your take on it, I'm just like, I don't get much out of it, but it's okay. But then, I really like the amount of work you put in here with going very thorough, going through all of the other specials, going into the music and things like that. Although I mentioned this to my boss as well, because he saw it too, and he's like, I noticed that he kept cutting to what the fuck was his name? It's the guitar player who's not Richie Zito, like the blonde guy. You keep showing the blonde guy who helped them record. I forget his name. I did the goddamn documentary for it. I forget his name, but it's the other guy who like lent his house as like a studio. And there's like a dumb clip of him. He's like, "Hi," and he opens his mailbox and like zooms in that way. It's like, what? It's a funny cut. But like you're showing that when you're talking about Richie Zito, and it's like, that's you know, whatever. I was a little, as someone who was involved in making that documentary, I was kind of see the hour-long video like, oh, maybe he goes kind of in detail and says what we say about the soundtrack, and not really. You kind of just give what the secret file gives you, and that's about it. That was disappointing. But again, I like this kind of the different aspects and things. I think my favorite is obviously that initial part. I also really like the framing device with talking about Voltron and erasing. Yeah, accidentally. I think they weren't really intending that, but you know, taking away all the Japaneseness out of it and then kind of illusion. It's like, oh, it's its own thing. And then Eiko, I like the idea that like Akira is the one that kind of set that boom, but it's only because it fits so well with the other sci-fi around at the time that the Western audiences were used to, but it was animated, and that was kind of the new thing about it. But it looked sophisticated. You could show it you could put it on a T-shirt, and people wouldn't cringe. You know what I mean? Or you could show this to an artsy, you know, film critic or whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, interesting." But like, Eiko, that's an anime fan's movie, and I really like that you bring that point up. And he's like, I think it actually ultimately sustained the interest in anime in the West, and I really like that point. And then bringing that, kind of giving that contrast back to Voltron, where Voltron is like, you're erasing all of it, and then Eiko, it's all right there. That's really cool. I like that contrast. I also kind of like the end where, you know, you were mentioning the interview with the director's like, yeah, this could never be made today. Eiko specifically, with how young the animators are and how kind of original concept it was, and they could just go wild with the animation and things like that. It couldn't be made today, and that's fair. It's unfortunate, but I like that you also ended up kind of really contextualizing that to modern day with like the modern IP stuff, corporations and animators are not really getting the treatment that they deserve, the compensation that they deserve, things like that. I like that you bring it all, kind of make it more relevant today. So that was a nice touch as well. So it's a really confidently made video, and I think it was really good. You know, I have my little nitpicks and gripes here and there, but ultimately it was a really good 100th episode. And it's not. I was like, it's nice that you waited until the restoration came in and you could use all that nice new footage. Although we do have better footage for Eiko too than what you use, so I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to one up you like that. Not that I'm in, you know, whatever. But it's great that you know you're able to make it in this really nice quality and stuff. It's really cool. I appreciate you using the theatrical cut too, because you know the whole director's intended sort of thing. That was smart. Yeah, I really enjoyed the video. It was a nice job. Might be a different camera angle because I had to charge my phone. Well, that happens. I'm finally talking about another Hartvigen video. Hello, yay! Good seeing you here. 2021 hentai in a nutshell. And yeah, he's talking about the recent anime that came out for hentai that came out this year, talking about that particular space that I have absolutely no interest or any knowledge of, really. So it is really nice seeing someone who is so immersed in this space to talking about it kind of critically and like on good faith and not just kind of jokey memey haha whatever, which he still does, of course. That's as you do. And he's very good at it. I always really appreciate the use of the facial expressions, and he does so many of them, and they're so different. There's a lot of variety in the faces and the choices that he makes. It's not just like the same face over and over, the same joke. Or if it is, you don't notice. If you use the same face 2 or 3 times, you don't notice. There's a nice, you know, ebb and, you know, variety to the video, and it moves very briskly. All the hentai kind of blends together for me because it all kind of looks similar and, you know, and everything like that. But I really appreciate his perspective and, you know, not liking certain titles that were super popular or anything, and talking about maybe some of the lowlights of like this really poor adaptation of a really popular doujin or something like that. I think it is really interesting that like there's probably such an explosion of hentai in the 2010s and 2000s, perhaps. I don't know how accurate this could be, really, but like I imagine hentai in like the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, you know, bit of the 2000s was original concepts, because like, yeah, we make porn and here's the thing. But like now there's actual hentai adaptations. That's just so interesting, right? It's like, it feels like it's elevated in a sense. you know. And I really do like the way he talks about it in an elevated way. I do really like the in-person comedy. Actually, I think that my favorite was definitely the the pretending to be a pedo and like gets on the this is like, I'm sorry, the car, and it's like, shut up. Like that, the execution of like the joke is so rote at this point. It's like whatever, haha, FBI open up, whatever. But like the actual execution of it and doing it in person and like the real effect of that, yes, hello, ends up being like really effective to me. It was just really fun. Yeah, I just really enjoyed the video. It's a good time. You don't need to upload too often. It's okay if you're busy. It is what it is. I'm just happy you're still active and doing stuff. And again, we're kind of providing a good service here with like talking about this facet of the community without being like, I love that you don't even like put any the crazy font that YouTube can't detect in the, you just say hentai. It's there it is. And no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I really appreciate that personally, I guess. Yeah, it's a good time. Nice job. MercuryFalcon got some mail from Japan, and I just thought I wanted to cover this because it was a particularly interesting video from him you don't normally see. I like that maybe because of the success of the previous video and experimented with some of the live action stuff. They felt comfortable filming this in live action with their roommates are there. And the haul is completely unexpected and kind of interesting, and they don't really give much of it away. And he gives adequate like information on why he bought it and what it is and things like that. And I think there's really playful banter with his roommate who's holding the camera and everything. And it's all kind of in one takes, and so they're like, "Oh, you should put this in frame," or things like that, and don't film the feet or whatever, things like that. It's fun. There's a good banter there, so this is a really comfy video, honestly. And kind of something new and fun to see from him. So yeah, and it's really fascinating stuff too, because it's just titles I hadn't heard of, and new, kind of a mix of old and new stuff, and that wasn't just a complete iceberg level, but it is nice to see this this perspective here, and seeing it kind of in person of like, oh yeah, I bought this, like I imported this like this DVD set you can barely seed, that's really cool. Yeah, I enjoyed this. It was a nice time. And lastly, if I'm going to put a video in last, well, of course it is. Of course, everyone, and naturally fawns over this video, and I'm no different. Here I am. Of course, once again, TheCynicClinic puts out a banger video. What's new? It's Tuesday. It's Monday, as normal, or Tuesday when you're likely watching this, or Wednesday if you watch it in the morning. I don't know. Trigon is mostly filler. That's why it's brilliant. 65% filler according to my filler anime list, blah blah, whatever. And I like that, really no coy, no uncertain terms, that he's like, one of the worst websites of all time. Like no, like completely out the, I really appreciated that. And his normal creativity, humor, polish, research, it's everything you want in a video. It just is. And I also really appreciate the length, because you could have gone like way more in detail, I think, in places, but like it was just the right amount of detail. I just really respect that and envy that. I mostly am envying your brevity at this point. Like I can envy other things like your humor and the detail and how nice the videos actually look, and the versatility in terms of like showing you being on camera, but also the footage and the tools that you're using and things like that. I can envy all of it, but like the brevity is probably the best part for me, because I'm like, man, I wish. Like, I don't know what it is, man. I can't bring myself to do it for some reason. It sucks. Oh well, guess it's not my lane. No, but yeah, I completely agree with this, and happy you brought it up. And I will be talking about filler in my own way with my Naruto video. But this was really nice, and it's kind of why it's brilliant. It makes sense. Yeah, in this particular, it's so funny that they were like, yeah, just skip the whole the last fourth of the anime because it's filler. God, it's so bad. It's really funny. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this up and calling this website out as a Garbo. Yeah, it was a nice time. I'm sorry I don't have too much concrete specific to say, I guess. I don't know if that was enough. Oh well. Yeah, great video as usual. Yeah, and that'll do it for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great week. Yo, peace.